Welcome back to a special episode of the Trippy J podcast. We have 17 more days of Michigan and its fans fucking around before they finally get to find out November 26th. I am joined tonight by a fellow Michigan fan and friend of mine, Jace. Jace, how you been, dude? It's been a minute since you've been on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm ready to talk about how I'm going to dominate this year. 14-0.
All right, well, yeah, his echo's going right now, so we're going to try to get that fixed up real quick. But yeah, so tonight we're going to talk a little Ohio State, Michigan, kind of talking about how their seasons have gone so far. We're going to go back and forth with questions that we have for each other regarding each team. As of right now, as it stands, Michigan is 9-0. Obviously, everyone knows they're Michigan's non-conference schedule is a little iffy. They do have wins over Penn State, Iowa, and Maryland. Most of their big games this year, most of their games have become at home. They do have a road win at Iowa. As for Ohio State, they are 9-0 as well. They have 2 wins over currently ranked teams in the college football playoff, Notre Dame and Penn State. They also beat Iowa and Wisconsin. Most of Ohio State games have also come at home. Their only road win of the year is against Penn State. They're the only team this year that has a road top 15 win. Ohio State is the one team. Every team that's ranked in the top, I think 5 or 10 or top 25 is 1, and I think it's 1 and 14. Ohio State has that lone road victory over a top 15 opponent. So Ohio State has that going for them. I'm going to let Jace talk again. I don't know if he wants me to keep going or does he want to test out his audio again before we get into it.
I had to back out real quick. I don't know if it's any better, but I'm on the AirPods now. So hopefully it works.
Yeah, it's a little bit better now. You're every now and then it'll kind of go quiet, but for the most part we can hear you and it's a lot better. So that's good. Let's talk about some of the strengths so far for each team. Actually, Jace, anything you want to talk about so far during Michigan's 9-game win streak to start the year, or do you just want to keep it moving?
Michigan has done what they're supposed to do. That's basically how you sum it up. And the last few years, that's what Michigan has done. They just do what they're supposed to do the first 9 weeks of the season. And then this is crunch time now. You got 3 games left. How are you going to finish? It's always hard for Michigan, whether it's against Ohio State, whether it's in the college football playoff. That's one of the things that they struggle with. So let's see if we can keep on a roll. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, so my only thing that I have to say about the season so far is that I don't give a shit how Ohio State looks or what they look like. It's a 1-game season at this point. As long as they have a 0 in the loss column heading into November 26th battle, that's all I care about. That's the only thing I fucking care about, and they shouldn't have any trouble getting to that game without a loss. So whatever happens before then really doesn't matter because both teams haven't really played anybody, and we aren't going to really know or be able to see anything that is going to tell us otherwise, giving us any sort of information heading into that game. So to me, it's all a moot point. We're going to find out November 26th. But other than that, let's get into some of the strengths and weaknesses of each team that we think so far. Obviously, for Ohio State, strengths, passing game. The passing game is going to be a strength. It's going to be a strength for Ohio State as long as Ryan Day is the head coach of the Buckeyes. C.J. Stroud is a Heisman favorite right now. Marvin Harrison has emerged as a wide receiver 1 for the Buckeyes, and honestly, he could be wide receiver 1 in the country. I am intrigued to see if they do get JSN back from injury. They've tried to bring him back a couple of times. He's kind of re-aggravated his injury, and as we both know, hamstring injuries are iffy and tough to deal with if you don't manage them the right way. So if you keep bringing a guy back early, it's just going to keep prolonging his recovery. From what I'm hearing so far is that the last time he came out of the game, he didn't re-aggravate the injury. They had him on a pitch count. They saw what they needed to see, and they've been managing him again for recovery, and he is going to be ready for the Michigan game. They're saying that maybe the week before for Maryland, he could play a little bit the week before just to get him, kind of acclimated back to the offense and getting that rhythm and timing down. But they do say that he will be back for the Michigan game. Not saying that's a good or a bad thing, just giving facts.
Him for? Can you even? Yeah, is that what they're saving him for?
I don't think that wasn't the plan. I think they didn't really understand I think the full extent of his injury, and they kept bringing him back too soon. But since he just had some sort of scare again, they're just going to wait for the Michigan. They don't need him against Indiana and Maryland the next couple weeks. So they're going to see what he can do against Maryland the week before Michigan. Give him a couple series in there to see what he can do, and then I think Michigan he'll be full strength. That's the hope, and I hope that's what happens.
Do you think that's going to help the offense, or do you think ultimately it might?
I think it's going to help the offense. I'm not saying he's going to have a big game, but Michigan knows what JSN's capable of doing. So if he's out there, they have to do some sort of game planning around him, or they have to game plan for him. You know how it is as a team. If you see a guy out there, whether he's 100% or not, you still have to treat him as if he is 100%, or he will burn you. So I think as an offense as a whole, it will be good to have him out there. I'm not saying he's going to have a great game, or he's going to be 100%, or he's going to be the JSN that we know, but I do think it will help the Buckeyes offense in some way.
It's much tougher to defend 3 All-Stars than it is 2.
Right, and Marvin Harrison needs a Robin to his Batman, so he needs somebody else out there with him. Another strength for Ohio State is, I know I kind of alluded to this in the offseason and kind of before the season started, was Ohio State needs to learn how to stop the run on defense. And this year, that's one of the strengths of the Buckeyes. They rank top 10 in the country in yards per rush allowed as a defense. And as of right now, that's a strength for them. And looking ahead to November 26th, I'm glad that's a strength that the Buckeyes have. That's all I got to say about that so far. Jace, I'll let you get into the strengths for the Michigan Wolverines.
Well, I'm glad you said the run, because biggest strength is their run game. And I'm really interested to see how Michigan matches up with, especially their O-line and their D-line, see how they match up against Ohio State. But when you have arguably the best running back duo in the country, I mean, when you have dudes, they're carrying the ball over 20, each of them, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, each of them carrying over 20 times a game, each getting 100-yard plus games, like, that's insane. I mean, you have Michigan has the best rated running back in the country. I believe still leads the country in touchdowns, second in the country in total points scored. I mean, he's a game changer for Michigan, and that's a huge testament to how you have the center, Virginia. I still don't know how to say his name. Not even going to try. Who's the captain of that line, and he's a stud. And when you have 3 returners coming back, that helps out a lot too. But one of Michigan's other strengths is stopping the run. I mean, when first team Demo every day in practice, you better be damn good at stopping. And that's what they've shown. I don't think if many teams have rushed over 100 yards against Michigan, but I do know that that's one of their biggest strengths, and that might be their only strength on defense. So now, from many other people, you know, Mike Sanders still, who's a freaking ball hawk out there, but I mean, that's just going to lead me into Michigan's weakness is their pass defense. I mean, that thing is being able to control both, right? So if one team is able to run the ball, or if one team is a big run heavy offense, they're fine. Okay, one team is a pass heavy offense, they're going to struggle a bit. Teams are able to throw all over this defense, but in the games that they have played, it is not as bad as I anticipated. Rutgers exposed them a lot last week, which was worrisome to say the least. But that's the one thing that you got to clean up, especially before with Ohio State's offense and how powerful it is and how they have to clean that side of the ball up. They have to pass defense. I mean, it's another big weakness for Michigan. And I know, Jared, you alluded to it later on, or you're going to allude to it later on, but I'll answer that question. The offense is the same as last year. There's really nothing that has changed since they switched quarterbacks. It's just dumbfounding to me. I don't understand when you have a 5-star recruit in there who Coach Harbaugh and says is better than Cade McNamara. He's going to carry this team to new heights, carry this offense to new heights. They're going to be a very explosive offense when you have weapons on the outside. Who are the weapons? Nobody has stood up and said, or has made a name for themselves on the outside. No wide receiver has a game. It's only the running backs. And that's one, on the play calling, and two, on missed opportunity by JJ McCarthy. I'm going to add another weakness. JJ's throwing the damn deep ball. I mean, how many times in the last dude with at least 3 yards of separation, deep ball overthrown by 3 yards? I mean, that just can't happen, especially against a team like Ohio State. You have to get those chances when you have them. And if you can't capitalize on big, then you're going to struggle against a team like Ohio State, because that's the only way you can be plays. And so I don't think Michigan is going to go into Columbus and play smash mouth football and win. I don't think that can happen, because they have one side of offense to defend. To me, that seems pretty easy. It seems when you can keep 7, 8 guys or 6, 7, 8 guys in the box and say, throw it. Beat us deep, I dare you. Make the throw, I dare you. That's, to me, as a defensive coach, that seems like a very easy offense to defend. Now, who knows? They might show out the next 3 weeks. Who knows? And they might show out and bring out a whole nother JJ and a whole nother new group of receivers by November 26th. It might be completely different offense. But the way it's looking, I think it's going to be. Which, if you're Michigan.
Yeah, so I think kind of basing off of that weakness that you have for Michigan in the throwing game and JJ throwing the ball, I'm going to tell you right now, Ohio State's game plan is to stop the fucking run that week. They are going to make JJ and that passing attack beat them. And if they can, awesome. But if I'm Ohio State, I'm Jim Knowles, I'm like, beat us. Beat us, bitch. Let's go.
Rutgers did.
Right.
They dominated the game in the first half against Michigan because they stopped. I wouldn't say stop the run, but they slowed it down. They slowed down the run game, and Michigan couldn't. And then, of course, Rutgers defense couldn't hold on.
So that's kind of the thing that I am intrigued about with Michigan, is the fact that teams have been trying to load the box against them outside of whatever the fuck Penn State was trying to do. Not sure still yet what they tried.
Coordinator showed up that day.
And you've seen glimpses of teams being able to stop Michigan for first halves or for halves at a time. But there's a difference between the rest of the teams in the Big Ten and what Ohio State is. Ohio State has the dogs and the talent to play a full game trying to stop the run and loading the box. Michigan is, as of right now, I think is getting away with just being more talented and wearing down defenses. And that's why you see second half explosions. Now, your weakness is also Ohio State's weakness on defense. Secondary. Ohio State's secondary is weak. But if a team like Michigan can't exploit that, which I think Michigan is capable of doing, but I haven't seen it yet. I think they have the personnel to do it. I think the coaching and the scheme is just really bad when it comes to the passing game for Michigan. But if they aren't going to show that, then Ohio State's weakness is also Michigan's weakness. So I think it's going to cancel out or even out. But the secondary is a weakness. Not really the safeties. They play 3 safeties, but the cornerbacks, they're not bad. They're just banged up, and they're really young. Like, they're starting freshmen at corner right now. Their best cornerback's a sophomore. So that's the reason that I think that could be a weakness, because honestly, there's no team that's tested them yet. Now, they will play Maryland the week before Michigan, so that I think that will say maybe a little bit. But I don't think Maryland has the explosiveness that Michigan has. So that concerns me, the weaknesses at secondary for Ohio State. The second thing I have, Ryan Day's play calling in big games. I love the man to death. He is a great offensive mind, but when it comes to the big games, Ryan Day tries to outthink himself. Against Penn State, they kept running screens, bubble screens, wide receiver screens, and it wasn't working. And then I get why he's doing that, because he wants the defense to run side to side, left to right, up and down, and then he's going to stretch them vertically. But you can't keep toying around with running a bubble screen if it's not going to work, because you damn near fucked around and lost. Thankfully, he's Ohio State and he has enough talent that he can overcome some of the things that he does. But against Michigan, he has to come out first drive of the game, and he just has to call a great game. And I know he can. He's done it multiple times, but for some reason, sometimes in big games, he has some questionable play calling. And the last thing, I don't want people to think that I don't think Ohio State can run the ball, because they can. But they need to be able to run the ball when it matters. And I talked about this at the beginning of the year in our preseason episode. Ohio State needs to be able to run the ball when it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. If they can do that against an opponent like Michigan, or an opponent that they could face possibly in the playoffs, they're going to win the national championship. Because their passing game and their offense will get them in those 3rd and shorts, those 4th and shorts. They need to be able to be a balanced team and not just be able to rely on the passing game and get them the first down. They need to be able to run the ball. They can run the football. I'm not freaking out about that, but they need to be able to run the ball when it matters. So that's the weaknesses so far that I'm seeing out of this Ohio State team. Once again, like I said, I don't think we can get much of a say on either one of these teams based off the competition they played up to this point. But there are some things that I see out of Ohio State that does kind of throw up the red flag when it comes to that game in a couple weeks. Anything you need to add, Jace, before we get on to our Q&A session?
I think I'm going to ask the question right now. So, what happened? Passing offense is just not there, like last week. Was that a fluke thing that the run? I just don't. I'm not saying that it wasn't there. Sorry, that it lacked the efficiency as they. So, I know you said you aren't worried, but is their offense a little bit worrisome to you about how they're going to be moving forward? Because like, what if there is another game? If it is sleeting and snowing sideways against Michigan and Columbus, like, as an Ohio State fan, that would make me worried. I know you don't like talking about weather affecting football games, but it does, and especially against a pass-heavy offense like Ohio State. Also, Ohio State probably has the number 2 in the big number 5, I'll say. on anybody in the country. Well, especially in the Big Ten. So why did they struggle last week against Northwestern in the rain? And will they struggle like that again, or was it a fluke?
Okay, so let me talk about the Northwestern game first. This goes back to the Ryan Day play calling. This motherfucker's stubborn as hell. The first couple series, he still tried to throw the football. And yes, how many games are you going to play? Me and you played golf in the wind that they had in Chicago. Like, how hard would it be to throw a football in that wind? I'm not saying it's all because of that, but yes, it obviously played a factor that they couldn't throw the football. And as an opposition or an opponent, if you know the other team can't throw the ball, what are you going to do? You're going to load the box, right? 8 guys in the box. And in that game, first, Ohio State only had the ball for 21 minutes total in that game. And they ran the ball 35 times for 207 yards. They almost averaged 6 yards a carry. So I don't think they couldn't run the ball. I don't think that's really the case.